A cleaning lady found mysterious notes from a client she'd never met. For months, they fell in love through handwritten messages. When she finally discovered who was writing them, her world changed forever. Before we start the story, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from, and at the end, don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Sophia Martinez had been working for Elite Cleaning Services for 2 years, and she'd learned that wealthy clients fell into 3 categories: the demanding ones who left detailed instruction lists, the invisible ones who were never home, and the weird ones who treated their housekeepers like furniture. But apartment 4B in the prestigious Morrison Towers was different. The client's name was listed simply as Jake in Sophia's schedule, and in 6 months of cleaning his penthouse twice a week, she'd never once encountered him. What made him unusual wasn't his absence. Plenty of wealthy clients were never home during cleaning hours. What made Jake different were the notes. It started small. The first note Sophia found was on the kitchen counter, written in neat handwriting on expensive stationery. "Sophia, thank you for always arranging the books by height. It looks so much better. Hope you're having a good day. Jake." Most clients either ignored their housekeepers entirely or left impersonal instructions about cleaning preferences. No one had ever thanked Sophia for something as simple as organizing books. The apartment itself was immaculate and clearly expensive, but it felt oddly impersonal. There were no family photos, no personal touches, no signs that anyone actually lived there. The furniture was designer quality, the art was museum-worthy, and the kitchen looked like it had never been used. What struck Sophia most was how lonely the place felt, despite its luxury. It was like a beautiful hotel suite rather than a home. The second note appeared a week later, placed on the coffee table. "Sophia, I noticed you watered my plants. They look happier than they have in months. Thank you for caring about the small things. Jake." Sophia had indeed watered the plants. They were beautiful, but clearly neglected, and she couldn't stand seeing living things suffer from lack of attention. Most clients would never notice or care about such details. By the 3rd week, Sophia found herself looking forward to Jake's notes. They were always thoughtful, always grateful, and always signed with just his first name. She began to wonder what kind of person he was. Someone wealthy enough to afford a penthouse in Morrison Towers, but humble enough to appreciate his housekeeper's efforts. After a month of receiving notes, Sophia decided to write back. She left her first response on the kitchen counter. "Jake, you're welcome about the plants. They were too pretty to ignore. Thank you for the kind words. It's nice to work for someone who notices the details. Sophia." The next time she came to clean, there was a new note waiting. "Sophia, I'm glad you decided to write back. It's nice to have someone to talk to, even in writing. Tell me, what do you think about when you're working? I'm curious about your perspective on, well, everything. Jake." Sophia stared at the note for several minutes. No client had ever asked her opinion about anything, let alone expressed curiosity about her thoughts. She spent the day cleaning and thinking about how to respond. Finally, she wrote, "Jake, honestly, I think about how different people's homes tell stories about their lives. Your apartment is beautiful but feels lonely, like you have everything money can buy, but maybe not everything you need. I hope that doesn't sound too personal. Sophia." Sophia worried she'd crossed a line with her honest response, but the next note proved her concern was unfounded. "Sophia, that might be the most insightful thing anyone has said to me in years. You're absolutely right. I have everything money can buy, and almost nothing that actually matters. How did you see that so clearly? Jake. And so began an unusual friendship between a housekeeper and a mysterious client who existed only in handwritten notes left in an empty penthouse. Sophia looked forward to Jake's apartment more than any other job on her schedule. Their written conversations covered everything from favorite books to life philosophies to dreams for the future. Jake was intelligent, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in Sophia's opinions and experiences. He asked about her family. She was putting herself through business school while working full-time. Her dreams, she wanted to start her own cleaning company someday, and her thoughts on everything from politics to movies to the meaning of happiness. Sophia found herself writing longer and longer responses, sharing thoughts and feelings she'd never expressed to anyone. Jake felt like a friend, confidant, and intellectual equal all rolled into one, despite the fact that she'd never actually met him. What Sophia didn't know was that Jake was actually Jacob Morrison, the billionaire CEO who owned not only Morrison Towers, but also Elite Cleaning Services. He'd been working undercover for months, studying his company's operations and employee satisfaction from the inside. Jacob had started using the penthouse, one of several properties he owned, as a base for his research. He'd never intended to develop a relationship with his housekeeper. But Sophia's intelligence, warmth, and genuine perspective had captured his attention in ways he'd never expected. For the first time in his life, someone was talking to him not as Jacob Morrison, the billionaire CEO, but as simply Jake, a person worthy of friendship based on his character rather than his bank account. And Jacob was falling in love with a woman who had no idea who he really was. 3 months into their note-passing friendship, Sophia realized she was looking forward to cleaning Jake's apartment more than anything else in her week. Their written conversations had evolved from simple pleasantries to deep, meaningful exchanges that left her thinking for days. Today's note from Jake was longer than usual, written on multiple pages in his careful handwriting. Sophia, I've been thinking about what you said last week, about how success means different things to different people. You said your definition of success is being able to help your family while building something meaningful with your own hands. That's beautiful and humbling. Most people in my circle define success purely by wealth accumulation or social status. Your perspective makes me question everything I thought I knew about what matters in life. What made you so wise? Jake. Sophia smiled as she read his words. Over the months, she'd formed a detailed picture of Jake in her mind. He was clearly wealthy. The apartment and expensive stationery made that obvious. But he seemed lonely, searching for meaning, hungry for genuine connection. She imagined him as someone who'd achieved professional success, but felt empty inside. She spent extra time cleaning that day, thinking about how to respond to such a personal question. Finally, she wrote, Jake, I'm not wise, just practical. Growing up without much money teaches you what's actually important. Food, shelter, love, purpose. Everything else is just decoration. I think wealthy people sometimes forget that because they've never had to worry about the basics. But you're different. The fact that you're questioning these things means you haven't lost touch with what really matters. That gives me hope for humanity. Sophia. She left the note on his bedside table, next to a small vase of fresh flowers she'd bought with her own money. The apartment always felt so sterile. Flowers seemed like a small way to make it more alive. The following week, Jake's response made her heart skip. Sophia, no one has ever brought flowers to my home just to make it more beautiful. When I saw them, I felt something I haven't experienced in years. The warmth of someone caring about my environment without expecting anything in return. You have no idea how much that gesture meant to me. I find myself looking forward to our conversations more than any other part of my week. Is it strange to feel so connected to someone I've never actually met? Jake. Sophia stared at the note, her cheeks warming. The feeling was mutual. She'd been thinking the same thing. Their friendship felt more real and meaningful than most of her face-to-face relationships. She wrote back, "Jake, it's not strange at all. Sometimes written words let us be more honest than spoken ones. There's something safe about expressing thoughts on paper, isn't there? I feel like I know you better through these notes than I know people I've worked with for years. You're thoughtful, intelligent, and surprisingly, humble for someone who can afford this apartment. I value our friendship more than you know. Sophia." Jacob read Sophia's response in his corporate office 40 floors above the penthouse, his heart racing. He'd started this undercover research project to better understand his employees' experiences, but it had become something entirely different. Sophia's notes were the highlight of his weeks. Her perspective on life, work, and what mattered had begun influencing his business decisions and personal priorities. But the deception was eating at him. Sophia's honesty and openness made his false identity feel like a betrayal, even though his feelings for her were completely genuine. He wrote his next note carefully. "Sophia, I need to tell you something, and I hope it doesn't change how you feel about our friendship. I'm not entirely who you think I am. My situation is more complicated than I've let on. But my feelings about our conversations, my respect for your intelligence and character, my gratitude for your kindness, all of that is completely real. Would you be willing to meet in person? I'd like the chance to explain everything honestly. Jake." When Sophia found that note, her hands trembled slightly. Part of her had always known this moment would come. Their friendship couldn't exist only in writing forever. But she was nervous about meeting Jake in person. What if the reality didn't match the connection they'd built through their notes? She wrote back, "Jake, your notes scared me a little, I'll admit. But our friendship means too much to me to let fear win. Yes, I'd like to meet you. Whatever complications you're dealing with, we can figure it out together. When and where? Sophia." Jacob's response was immediate. "Sophia, thank you for being brave. Tomorrow is Saturday. I know you don't usually work weekends. Would you meet me at the apartment at 7 p.m.? I'll explain everything then, including why I've been so mysterious." And Sophia? "No matter what happens, please know that these months of friendship have meant more to me than anything else in my life." Jake, Sophia spent Friday night alternating between excitement and anxiety. She'd grown to care deeply about Jake through their written conversations, but meeting him in person would change everything. Would their connection translate to face-to-face interaction? Would she be disappointed? Would he? Saturday evening, Sophia stood outside apartment 4B with shaking hands, wearing her best dress and carrying a small gift, a book of poetry they discussed in their notes. She knocked on the door, her heart pounding. When it opened, Sophia's breath caught in her throat. The man standing before her was not at all what she'd expected. The man who opened the door was tall, dark-haired, and impeccably dressed in casual but expensive clothes. He was handsome in the polished way of successful businessmen, but his gray eyes held a vulnerability that immediately reminded Sophia of the thoughtful person she'd come to know through their notes. "Sophia," he said softly, his voice warm but nervous. "Thank you for coming." "You're Not what I expected, Sophia said honestly, studying his face. I know. Please come in. I owe you a complete explanation. As Sophia entered the apartment she knew so well, it felt different with Jake actually present. The space seemed less lonely, more alive. Before we talk, Jake said, I need to tell you my real name. Sophia's stomach clenched. Your real name? My name is Jacob Morrison, and I'm the CEO of Morrison Enterprises, which owns elite cleaning services. Sophia stared at him, the words not quite registering. You're my boss? Technically, yes, but Sophia, please let me explain before you leave. Sophia sank into the chair she'd dusted dozens of times, her mind reeling. You're Jacob Morrison, as in Morrison Towers, Morrison Enterprises, billionaire Jacob Morrison. Yes. And you own the cleaning company I work for. Yes. Sophia looked around the apartment with new understanding. This isn't just some rich guy's penthouse. You live here. This is your home. One of them, Jacob admitted. Sophia, I know this is shocking, but everything I wrote in our notes was true. My feelings, my thoughts, my appreciation for your perspective, none of that was fake. Sophia stood up, pacing to the windows she'd cleaned countless times. Why? Why the deception? Why pretend to be someone else? Jacob ran his hands through his hair, looking more uncertain than Sophia had ever seen him. 6 months ago, I inherited elite cleaning services as part of a larger acquisition. I'd heard rumors about poor employee treatment, low wages, lack of respect from clients. I wanted to understand the reality of my employees' experiences before making changes. So you went undercover. I started using this apartment as a base for research, having different elite employees clean it so I could observe the working conditions firsthand. You were assigned to clean here twice a week. Sophia turned to face him. And the notes? Jacob's expression softened. The notes weren't part of any plan. You did something no other employee had done. You saw this place as a home that needed care, not just a job to get through. You watered plants, arranged books, brought flowers. You made this cold apartment feel warm. So you decided to befriend me? I decided to thank you. The first note was just gratitude. But when you wrote back, when you shared your thoughts about loneliness and what makes a house a home, Sophia, you saw straight through to something I'd been feeling for years. No one in my real life had ever been that perceptive or honest with me. Sophia sat back down, trying to process everything. How long were you planning to keep lying to me? I wasn't lying about who I am as a person, Jacob said earnestly. I was lying about my circumstances, and I hated it more every day. Sophia, you've become the most important person in my life. These conversations we've had, the way you've made me think about success and happiness and what matters. You've changed how I see everything. But it was all based on a deception. Jacob moved closer, his eyes pleading. The deception was my name and job title. Everything else was real. My loneliness, my respect for your intelligence, my gratitude for your kindness, He paused, taking a breath. My feelings for you. Sophia's heart skipped, but she forced herself to stay focused. Jacob, you're a billionaire CEO. I'm a housekeeper working my way through business school. Even if your feelings are genuine, we live in completely different worlds. Do we? These past months, haven't we connected as equals? Haven't our conversations been between two people who understand each other intellectually and emotionally? Sophia considered this. It was true. Their written exchanges had felt like conversations between equals. Jacob had never talked down to her or made her feel lesser. If anything, he'd consistently valued her perspective and treated her insights as important. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "That depends on you," Jacob said. "I know I deceived you about my identity, and I know the wealth gap between us is enormous. But, Sophia, what we've built through our notes, that connection, that understanding, it's the most real thing in my life." Sophia looked at this man she'd come to care about deeply, trying to reconcile Jake the lonely note writer with Jacob the billionaire CEO. "Can I ask you something honestly? Anything. Was any of this just curiosity? Rich guy wondering what it's like to talk to a regular person?" Jacob's expression grew intense. "Sophia, I've met thousands of people in my professional life. Wealthy people, successful people, educated people. None of them have made me think or feel or question myself the way you have. You're not a regular person to me. You're extraordinary." Sophia felt tears building in her eyes. "This is so confusing, Jacob. I care about you, about Jake, but I don't know how to separate your real feelings from your circumstances." "Let me show you," Jacob said quietly. "Give me a chance to prove that my feelings for you have nothing to do with novelty or curiosity, and everything to do with recognizing someone incredible." Sophia looked into his eyes, the same thoughtful, vulnerable eyes she'd imagined belonging to Jake, and realized that regardless of his name or bank account, this was still the person who'd written her dozens of beautiful, honest letters. "Okay," she said finally, "but we start over. No more deception. No more hiding who you are. If we're going to try this, it has to be completely honest from now on." Jacob's smile was radiant with relief. "Complete honesty. I promise. And I want to understand what you've learned from your undercover research. If you really care about your employees' experiences, I want to see the changes you're planning to make. I'd love to show you. Sophia, your insights have already influenced several policy changes I'm implementing." As they sat together in the apartment where their unusual friendship had begun, both Sophia and Jacob felt like they were starting something entirely new. A relationship built on the foundation of genuine connection, but now requiring them to navigate the complexities of their very different worlds. It wouldn't be easy, but the months of honest communication through written words had given them something rare. A deep understanding of each other's character that went beyond surface circumstances. Now they just had to figure out if that was enough. 2 weeks after Jacob's revelation, Sophia found herself in a situation she'd never imagined. Having dinner in a private dining room at one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants with a billionaire who was trying to prove his feelings were genuine. "This place makes me nervous," Sophia admitted, looking around at the opulent decor and trying to ignore the fact that their server probably earned more per hour than she made in a day. "We can leave," Jacob said immediately. "We can go anywhere you'd be more comfortable." Sophia studied his face, seeing the same attentiveness she'd come to know through his notes. "No, I want to try this. But Jacob, you need to understand, this isn't my world. I'm going to make mistakes, use the wrong fork, probably embarrass you." "Sophia, you could never embarrass me. And honestly, I'm more nervous than you are." "Why would you be nervous? This is your world." Jacob set down his menu and looked at her directly. "Because I've never brought someone here who matters to me. Everyone else I've dated in places like this, it was all performance, image management. This is the first time I've cared whether someone actually enjoys themselves or just pretends to for my sake." Sophia felt some of her anxiety ease. So we're both out of our element. Completely. Their conversation flowed as easily as their written exchanges had, moving from current events to philosophy to their shared love of books. Sophia found herself relaxing despite the intimidating setting, reminded that regardless of his wealth, Jacob was still the thoughtful person she'd grown to care about. "Can I ask you about your undercover research?" Sophia said over dessert. "What did you learn?" Jacob's expression grew serious. "That I was completely out of touch with my employees' reality. The working conditions, the pay scale, the way some clients treat staff. It was worse than I'd imagined." "And what are you doing about it?" "Implementing a complete overhaul. Wage increases across the board, better benefits, mandatory respect training for all clients, and anonymous feedback systems so employees can report problems without fear of retaliation." Sophia was impressed despite herself. "Those are significant changes." "They're changes that should have been made years ago. Sophia, your insights from our notes helped me understand not just what was wrong, but how to fix it. You made me see that treating employees with dignity isn't just morally right, it's better business." "So, something good came out of your deception." Jacob reached across the table to take her hand. "Sophia, I know the way we met was complicated, but I need you to understand. My feelings for you aren't about guilt over lying to you or gratitude for your business insights. I fell for the woman who writes poetry on post-it notes and leaves flowers to brighten empty rooms." Sophia felt her heart skip. Over the past weeks, Jacob had been consistently proving that his interest in her was genuine. He listened to her opinions, valued her perspective, and treated her as an equal despite their different circumstances. "Jacob, I need to be honest about something too." "What?" "I'm scared, not of you, but of this." She gestured between them. "Of people thinking I'm with you for your money. Of losing myself in your world. Of our relationship becoming about what you can give me instead of what we give each other." Jacob squeezed her hand. "What if we made a rule? No gifts that I wouldn't have been able to afford as Jake. No expensive trips or jewelry or anything that feels like I'm trying to buy your affection." "You'd do that?" "Sophia, I want you to be with me because you care about who I am as a person. Everything else is just complications we can work around." Sophia smiled. "I like that approach, but I have a condition too." "Name it." "I want to meet your business as Jacob Morrison, not just as Jake. I want to see how you treat your employees, how you run your companies, what kind of leader you are. If we're going to be together, I need to know all of you." "Done. In fact, I have a proposition." "What kind of proposition?" Jacob looked slightly nervous. Elite Cleaning Services needs a new employee relations manager. Someone to oversee the policy changes, handle worker complaints, ensure the new standards are being implemented properly. Sophia stared at him. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a career. You're brilliant, Sophia. You understand both sides, the employee experience and what makes good business sense. You could make a real difference." "Jacob, I can't take a job just because we're dating. That's exactly the kind of thing that would make people think." "Then don't take it because we're dating," Jacob interrupted. "Take it because you're qualified, because you care about these issues, and because you could help hundreds of employees have better working conditions." Sophia considered the offer. It was true that she understood the challenges Elite's employees faced, and she'd always dreamed of making a difference in working conditions for service industry workers. "What would people say about you hiring your girlfriend?" "Let them talk. Sophia, I've been making business decisions based on other people's opinions my entire life. For once, I want to make a decision based on what's right." Sophia looked at Jacob, really looked at him, and saw not the billionaire CEO, but the man who'd written her thoughtful notes for months, who'd listened to her perspectives, who'd changed company policies based on her insights about worker dignity. "Okay," she said, "but I'm not your girlfriend taking a job from her boyfriend. I'm Sophia Martinez, business school graduate, accepting a position I'm qualified for with a company where I can make a difference." Jacob's smile was brilliant. "Deal. When can you start?" "Monday. But Jacob?" "Yes?" "No more lies, no more deception. If this is going to work, it has to be built on complete honesty." "Complete honesty," Jacob agreed. "Starting with this, I'm falling in love with you, Sophia Martinez. Not because you're grateful for opportunities I can provide, but because you're the most intelligent, caring, authentic person I've ever met." Sophia felt her heart soar. "I'm falling in love with you too, Jacob Morrison. The real you, not Jake the mysterious note writer or Jacob the powerful CEO. Just you." As they left the restaurant that night, both of them felt like they'd turned a corner. The deception that had started their relationship was behind them, and they were building something new based on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine love. It wouldn't be without challenges. Their different backgrounds would create obstacles they'd have to navigate together. But they had something many couples lacked: months of honest communication that had shown them each other's character, values, and hearts. They were ready to write the next chapter of their love story, this time with both their real names on every page. 3 months later, Sophia sat in her new office at Elite Cleaning Services headquarters, reviewing employee feedback forms and smiling at the positive changes she was documenting. As employee relations manager, she'd implemented anonymous reporting systems, conducted satisfaction surveys, and worked directly with cleaning staff to address their concerns. The transformation had been remarkable. Employee turnover was down 60%. Client complaints about service quality had virtually disappeared, and worker satisfaction scores had reached all-time highs. "Knock, knock," Jacob's voice came from her doorway. Sophia looked up to see him leaning against the doorframe, holding 2 coffee cups and wearing the casual smile that still made her heart skip. "Bringing the boss lady coffee," she teased. "Bringing my girlfriend coffee," he corrected, setting a cup on her desk. "How's your first quarterly review looking?" "See for yourself," Sophia said, turning her computer screen toward him. Jacob whistled low. "These numbers are incredible, Sophia. Productivity is up, costs are down, and employee satisfaction is through the roof. Turns out, when you treat people with dignity and pay them fairly, they do better work. Revolutionary concept." Jacob laughed. "You're never going to let me forget how out of touch I was, are you?" "Never," Sophia agreed cheerfully. "It keeps you humble." Their relationship had found a comfortable balance over the past months. At work, Sophia was professional and independent, making decisions based on what was best for the employees and company. Outside the office, she and Jacob were building a life together based on their shared values and deep connection. The press had eventually caught wind of their relationship. "Billionaire CEO falls for former employee" had been the headline in several gossip magazines. But Sophia had handled the attention with the same directness she brought to everything else, giving one interview where she explained that she'd fallen for Jacob's character, not his bank account. "I have something for you," Jacob said, pulling out an envelope. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "We agreed no expensive gifts." It's not expensive. It's just meaningful. Sophia opened the envelope to find a handwritten note in Jacob's familiar script. Sophia, it's been exactly 1 year since you first replied to one of my notes. Thank you for taking a chance on a mysterious stranger, for seeing through my loneliness, and for changing my entire perspective on what matters in life. Thank you for being brave enough to meet me in person and forgive my deception. Thank you for loving the real me. This year has been the happiest of my life. Jacob, no longer Jake. At the bottom of the note was a key. What's this for? Sophia asked. Remember how you used to leave flowers in the penthouse to make it feel less lonely? Of course. I want you to move in with me, not because of convenience or because it's what couples do, but because you've already made that apartment feel like home. I want to wake up every morning in the place where we fell in love through written words. Sophia looked at the key, then at Jacob's hopeful face. They'd been dating for 6 months, and living separately had allowed them both to maintain their independence while building their relationship. But she was ready for the next step. On one condition, she said. Anything. I want to redecorate. That place is beautiful, but sterile. If I'm moving in, I want it to feel like our home, not just your apartment. Jacob's grin was radiant. Deal? Though I should warn you, I have terrible taste in home decor. Good thing I have experience making cold spaces feel warm. That evening, they stood in the penthouse apartment where their unusual love story had begun, planning how to transform it into a real home. Sophia was sketching furniture arrangements while Jacob attempted to cook dinner. His culinary skills had improved significantly under Sophia's patient instruction. You know what's funny? Sophia said, looking around the space. What? A year ago, I cleaned this apartment and thought whoever lived here must be the loneliest person in the world. I felt sorry for them. You weren't wrong, Jacob said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. I was lonely. I just didn't realize how lonely until someone started caring about my plants and leaving me flowers. Sophia leaned back against his chest, looking out at the city lights through the windows she'd cleaned dozens of times. I never could have imagined this, any of this. What? That you'd fall in love with a client through post-it note conversations? That I'd find someone who sees me the way you do, someone who values my thoughts and opinions, who treats me as an equal, who loves me for who I am rather than who they want me to be. Jacob pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Sophia, you've made me a better person and a better leader. You've taught me that success means building something meaningful, not just accumulating wealth. You've shown me what love actually looks like. What does it look like? Like someone who brings flowers to brighten your day, like someone who challenges you to be better, like someone who sees your flaws and loves you anyway. Sophia turned in his arms to face him. Jacob Morrison, you are nothing like what I expected when I first started cleaning this apartment. Good different or bad different? The best different, Sophia said, standing on her toes to kiss him. As they held each other in the apartment where their story began, both Sophia and Jacob marveled at how a simple cleaning job had led to the love of their lives. What had started as deception had grown into the most honest relationship either of them had ever experienced. They'd learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It was about seeing each other clearly, communicating honestly, and choosing each other every day, despite their different backgrounds. Their love story would never be conventional. She was still the girl from a working-class family putting herself through school. He was still the billionaire CEO with more money than most people could imagine. But they'd found something that transcended their circumstances. A partnership built on mutual respect, intellectual connection, and the kind of deep love that grows from truly knowing and appreciating another person's character. And it all started with a handwritten note left on a kitchen counter by someone lonely enough to reach out and someone kind enough to write back. 1 year later, Sophia stood in the same penthouse apartment, but now it truly felt like home. The sterile designer furniture had been replaced with comfortable pieces they'd chosen together. Family photos lined the shelves, plants thrived in every room, and the kitchen actually looked like people cooked in it regularly. Tonight was special. Jacob had planned something mysterious for their anniversary, and Sophia was both excited and nervous about what he might have in store. "Close your eyes," Jacob said, taking her hand. "Jacob, what are you up to?" "Trust me." He led her out onto the terrace, which had been transformed with hundreds of twinkling lights and white flowers. The same type she'd brought to brighten his lonely apartment over a year ago. "Okay, open them." Sophia gasped. The terrace looked like something from a fairy tale. But what took her breath away wasn't the decoration. It was the handwritten notes hanging from string lights all around the space. "What is this?" "Every note we ever wrote to each other," Jacob said softly. "I kept them all." Sophia walked around the terrace, reading their written conversations displayed like artwork. Here was her first reply to his thank you note. There was his confession about feeling lonely. Here was her insight about what makes a house a home. "Jacob, this is incredible." "Sophia, these notes represent the foundation of everything we've built together. They show two people getting to know each other honestly, falling in love with each other's minds and hearts before anything else." Sophia reached the end of the display, where a new note hung by itself. With shaking hands, she read, "Sophia, a year ago, you responded to a stranger's note and changed both our lives forever. You saw through my loneliness, challenged my perspectives, and loved me for who I really was. You made me want to be worthy of your affection every single day. Will you marry me and keep writing our love story together for the rest of our lives? Jacob." Sophia turned to find Jacob on one knee, holding a ring that was perfect. Elegant, but not ostentatious. Unique, but timeless. "Oh my God," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Sophia Martinez, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever met. You've made me a better man, a better leader, and definitely a better note writer. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Sophia said immediately, not needing to think for even a second. "Yes, absolutely yes." Jacob slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her as the city lights twinkled around them like stars. "I love you, Jacob Morrison," Sophia said against his lips. "I love you too, future Mrs. Morrison, though I know you'll probably hyphenate." Sophia laughed through her happy tears. "Sophia Martinez Morrison does have a nice ring to it." "Speaking of rings," Jacob said, "there's one more thing." He handed her a final note. "Sophia, I know we agreed no expensive gifts, but I couldn't resist this one. It's not about money. It's about giving you something you've always dreamed of. Check your email." "Jacob!" Confused, Sophia pulled out her phone and opened her email to find a message from her lawyer with the subject line, "Congratulations, business owner." "Jacob, what did you do?" "I helped you buy elite cleaning services. You're now the majority owner of the company where you started as an employee." Sophia stared at him in shock. "You bought me a company?" "I invested in an entrepreneur I believe in. Sophia, you've transformed Elite's culture and performance in less than a year. You deserve to own what you've built." Sophia felt tears building again. "Jacob, this is too much." "It's exactly enough. Sophia, you've always dreamed of owning your own business, of making a difference for working people. Now you can do both on a bigger scale than you ever imagined." "But what about you? What about your other businesses?" Jacob smiled. "I'm thinking of making some changes, focusing on more meaningful work, maybe partnering with my brilliant fiancé on expanding ethical employment practices across multiple industries." Sophia looked at this amazing man who'd gone from mysterious note writer to the love of her life and realized their story was just beginning. "Partners in business and in life?" she asked. "Partners in everything," Jacob confirmed. 6 months later, Sophia Martinez Morrison stood at the altar in an intimate ceremony surrounded by family and friends, including dozens of Elite Cleaning Services employees who had become like family under her leadership. As she and Jacob exchanged vows they'd written themselves, naturally, Sophia reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. "Sophia," Jacob said, his voice strong and clear, "you taught me that the most valuable connections aren't made in boardrooms or at networking events. They're made when two people see each other clearly and choose to be vulnerable, honest, and authentic. You saw through my loneliness when I was hiding behind success, and you loved me for who I really was, not what I could provide." Sophia's vows were equally heartfelt. "Jacob, you showed me that love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about someone who notices when you water their plants, who values your thoughts and opinions, who writes you notes just to brighten your day. You made me feel seen, heard, and valued in ways I never thought possible." As they kissed as husband and wife, both Sophia and Jacob knew they'd found something rare and precious. A love built on the foundation of genuine friendship, honest communication, and mutual respect that transcended their different backgrounds. The reception was held in the penthouse where their love story began, now transformed into a warm, welcoming space that reflected both their personalities. The walls displayed framed versions of their original notes to each other, and guests delighted in reading the written conversation that had started it all. During his speech, Jacob's business partner and best man joked, "I've never seen Jacob happier than he's been since Sophia came into his life. She's made him more human, more grounded, and significantly better at domestic tasks. Sophia, thank you for teaching my friend that success isn't just about profit margins. It's about building something meaningful with someone you love." Sophia's maid of honor, her college roommate Maya, added, "Sophia has always been the kind of person who makes everyone around her feel valued and cared for. Jacob, you're lucky she decided to write back to your first note. And Sophia, you've found someone who appreciates your beautiful heart and brilliant mind. You two are perfect for each other." As the evening wound down, Sophia and Jacob found themselves alone on the terrace where Jacob had proposed, looking out at the city lights. "Mrs. Martinez Morrison," Jacob said, pulling her close, "how does it feel to be married to your former mysterious pen pal?" "Like the most beautiful fairy tale," Sophia replied, "except better because it's real." "Any regrets about marrying a billionaire CEO who used to lie about his identity?" Sophia pretended to consider seriously. "Well, you do leave your socks on the bedroom floor, and you still burn pancakes half the time, and you have this annoying habit of working too late. But you also leave me sweet notes on my pillow. You listen to my ideas like they're the most important things in the world, and you make me feel like I can accomplish anything. So, I guess I'll keep you." Jacob laughed and spun her around. "Good, because I plan to spend the rest of our lives proving that marrying you was the smartest business decision I ever made." Business decision? The best investment I ever made was in our future together. As they danced under the stars on the terrace where they'd first met in person, both Sophia and Jacob marveled at how a simple note left on a kitchen counter had led to the love of their lives. Their story proved that sometimes the most extraordinary connections begin in the most ordinary ways, with someone lonely enough to reach out and someone kind enough to respond. It showed that real love isn't about what you can buy for each other, but about seeing each other clearly, communicating honestly, and choosing each other every day. The maid who fell in love through secret notes had become a successful business owner. The lonely CEO who hid behind false identities had learned to open his heart completely. And together, they'd built not just a marriage, but a partnership that would continue changing lives, starting with each other's and extending to every person whose working conditions they improved through their shared commitment to treating everyone with dignity and respect. Their love story would be told for years among elite cleaning services employees as proof that sometimes the most unlikely connections lead to the most beautiful destinations. And every new employee would hear about the notes that started it all, handwritten messages between two people who found each other across different worlds and chose to build something extraordinary together. As Sophia and Jacob held each other under the city lights, both of them knew their greatest adventure was just beginning. They had a business to run, lives to improve, and a love story to keep writing, this time with both their real names on every page. And they still left each other notes every single day because some beautiful traditions are too precious to ever abandon. What did you think of Sophia's and Jacob's story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one of our stories, and stick around to watch more heartfelt tales by clicking right here on the final screen.